Hello and welcome to Iridium Rock and Metal Reviews. So today I'm going to review an album by Christian metal band We Are Resolute. So it's an album called Shine the Light, and it's out on Rox Records, and it was released actually July the 31st this year. So this is another band that has contacted me, and I'm honoured. It's great. Having bands contacted me to review their albums is a brilliant thing for me. So the actual guitarist of this band contacted me, Brian Carmen, and asked me to review the album. So I said I'd have a listen, and here we are. So this band, for all you Christian metal fans out there, is the vocalist is Dal Thompson, who it was the and I think they're doing a new album, the band Bride, Christian metal band Bride. So it also consists of, as well as Brian Carmen on the guitar, also John Mockmer does the drums and bass on this. So Brian contacted me and said, could you do a review of the album? And as I said before, I won't be able to review every album, especially if it's not my sort of thing. You know, I think it's a bit unfair, but this obviously is, so that's why I'm reviewing it. So let me explain a little bit what they sound like. So I haven't listened to Bride, so this is completely new to me. So the singer's new. I've heard of the band, but I never did listen to them when I was younger. So everything about this record is new for me. So it's sort of starting afresh. So let me tell you a bit about the band, who they sound like, or what they sound like, what influences they take, so you get an idea, and also play you a couple of snippets, a couple of their tracks. So for me, and this is purely what I'm hearing straight away, very late 70s, early 80s influenced, melodic, heavy rock, and sometimes metal as well. Definitely metal in there as well. And some of the bands that I'm hearing, an actual Christian metal band, I can hear a bit of Barren Cross in there. And a lot of you guys, I know that with this channel, keep mentioning Barren Cross. I do actually listen to a bit of Barren Cross. They sound a little bit like them. They got a sort of bit of, sometimes a bit of a sleazy sort of sound, on LA 80s LA sort of strip sort of sound. But other times, you know, straightforward rock, hard rock. Definitely sort of sound a bit glammy, like I said, that sort of LA sort of scene that was in the 80s. And what I can hear a lot here is a bit of Judas Priest. I think a lot of that's brought on by the singer. He's got, you know, he can reach some real heights. I mean, Dal Thompson now, I was looking up, he's 57 years old, and, you know, he sings like he was 20. You know what I mean? He can reach some real heights, and he's sort of got like a bit of a Rob Halford sound, but for me, I prefer him than Rob Halford. And I know a lot of guys on this channel will probably think, what are you talking about? But Rob Halford, for me, I can't always get along with the tone of his voice. I can understand, you know, what he's done for metal and how high he can sing and his range and all that. But as far as tone, I really go for a good tone when it comes to a singer. And Dal Thompson, he's really good. His tone's great as well. So, like I said, 70s and 80s influence for me, this sounds like. A little bit of sort of bluesy, especially in the guitar solos I can hear. Sort of mostly power chords, what we're talking about now. It's sort of mostly driven with power chords, most of these songs. The guitar tone is interesting. It really, I don't know if it's the production or what they were going for. But it has a real early 80s sort of hair metal sound, guitar sound. It really does. And similar, like I said, to Barren Cross, there's an album they had out, like an early one, or well, it wasn't early because it was sort of late 80s, I think, but one of their albums, I think it's Atomic Arena, I believe. You correct me if I'm wrong. But the production's very similar to that. I don't know if they was going for this sort of, especially going for this to make it sound like an 80s sort of record, but it definitely has got that sound for sure. So what I like about the singer as well, let's get onto the singer again before I talk about the other guys in the band. So he's got like he sings a lot of the time he's sort of, I think he's doing the harmonising. So he's overlaying his voice in a lot of this album. So you can hear he sings like clean and then sort of high, like screams at the same time. Never, we're not talking death metal screams, we're talking melodic metal. And, you know, I think that's when he sounds his best, when he's doing that scream inside of it. There's a song on here, Kingdom of Heaven, which is a really good song. But Dale Thompson sings a bit differently in that, but I prefer him when he does his heavy metal sort of scream. It's just my preference, that's all. Let's talk about the other guys in the band. So we've got, like I said, Brian Carman does all the guitars on this album, I believe. Although John Mockmer did some originally. I don't know on some other songs, but what I can find is Brian done all the guitars. He does a great job. Like I said, mainly it's power chords and sort of blues tinged sometimes when you're hearing the guitar solos. Does a really great job. Don't know, Brian will have to let me know if he was going for that particular guitar sound. Like I said, it's really interesting. And it really got that sort of old sort of 80s sort of sound to his guitar. But interesting, really interesting. And John Mockmer does a great job on the drums and the bass. I don't know what's going on, why they haven't got a bass player or a drummer lot as well. But he does both, does a great job, keeps everything how it's meant to be, sort of nice and simple, you know what I mean? It's like, with this band, it's not a sort of progressive band or anything, so they're very sort of simple, sort of hard rock driven sort of songs. So that's how you want the drums and bass, keep it simple and tight, and definitely does that. The bass is ramped quite high up on this though, I did notice when I was listening to the album. So production wise it's quite good, just sounds very, it does sound like, you know, if someone put this album on and you listen to the production, you would think it came straight out of the 80s. It's got that sound. It really has. So let's talk about the songs themselves. So it starts off with a song called Inside, which is, I think, is a really good song to start with. Sort of got that, like I mentioned before, that sort of sleazy LA strip type sound to it. Really like that song. I thought it was great. One of my favourites on the album. Then it comes, they do really mix it up. So Chasing Shadows is next, and it sort of like has more of an epic sort of vibe, sort of not more straightforward like the first one. It's sort of slow but heavy. I could almost hear some early Queensryche, and I mean early Queensryche. We're talking the EP or the Warning sort of, but not sort of progressive. But Queensryche ain't always progressive anyway, but more, you know, sort of toned down Queensryche, if you like. But I can definitely hear, I don't know if that was meant, but definitely hear a little bit of that. That's what I'm getting from it. The next one, Crazy, has a very 70s sound, sort of glam sound. It reminded me of Kiss. It really reminded me of Kiss, sort of upbeat sort of song. Their early stuff, not the 80s Kiss, but the 70s Kiss. Next up, you've got Shine the Light, which is a good track. It's the title track. It's got a real early 80s vibe and late 70s. Sort of, again, for those dynamics in this sort of epic sort of sounding. Your Enemy is the next one. This is one of my favourites, and this definitely has some Priest influence in here. Whether they mean, bands don't always mean to go for sounding like a band, but they do it because they're influenced by them. I'd like to know if the band are, you know, whether Judas Priest are one of their, you know, whether they're fans of the band. I don't know, but what you get is the vocalist is giving you that feeling that I think he makes it sound more like Priest than it would without him, if you know what I mean. I think he helps it along that way to make you think of that band. Next track is really good, Don't Listen. Yet again, pulling influences from the 70s, early 80s. Again, I saw the Priest connection in there a little bit. Guitar solo, very 70s on this one though. Very 70s. Very interesting. They sort of mix it up. A few influences within a song. They touch upon genres in nearly all of their songs. You know, it's good. Next one's my favourite. That's Why I Cry. The vocalist really shows his range on this one, and I'm going to play you Why I Cry a bit later along with Your Enemy, a little bit of Your Enemy as well. Mad at God is the 8th track on the album. Probably my least favourite track. Sort of a medium pace, sort of chugging groove going on. It's not a bad song, but it's my least favourite. So when I say it's not a bad song, it's obviously amongst a lot of good songs, you know, but it is their single. Bit of a strange choice for me. Probably for me, it sounds the least melodic song of the album, you know. To choose it as a single just seemed a strange choice, but you know, sometimes it's what the band, they might have thought this was a standout track. For me, it wasn't the standout track. There's a lot more than them. It really closes on a couple of interesting tracks though, this album. So it's only 10 tracks, but 9 and 10. 9, it's like a ballad. This is one where it shows sort of different side of the band, like acoustic driven with some power chords going over the top. And this is sort of where the singer sort of sings at a sort of lower level. I prefer him at the higher level, but it's still a really interesting song. It's got some really interesting vibe to this one. I love it, the way them chords are sort of flowing over the top, them power chords, and going over that acoustic. It's really good. And the last song is really interesting. So We Will See Him. So it's sort of slower again. And again, the power chords going over the top of this. I really like this one. I mean, Kingdom of Heaven built up at the end to this sort of thing, but this to them sort of chords going over that sort of acoustic. But in this last one, it's from the beginning, and it's really great. This is probably the most interesting song on the album, the closer. And this has got, from the get-go, it's got clean guitar and driven with like these power chords going over the top. It's a sort of really cool vibe, the last one, We Will See Him. I really enjoyed it. But I'm going to play you a couple of little bits of the album. So I hope you like it. And you know, sometimes you can't always get from a review, you know, you want a bit of evidence, don't you? So I'm sure a lot of you Christian metal fans especially will like this album. I'm saying it's the I've only listened to this album once, but it's sort of hooked you sort of straight away. You sort of notice the melody in it, but lyrically, you know, I could hear that, you know, similar to Striper, you know, their views of Christianity are right through the record, you know. But sometimes, I suppose, with the production as well and the way the singer sings, you can't always hear every lyric, but you can, you know, when he sings a bit cleaner, you can understand what the guys are all about, you know. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I really like the album. I know there's a lot of people who listen to my channel will like it as well, because this is what the people who watch this channel like, their music melodic, you know, and this is what it is. But I really, really, really think the production is making it sound a lot older than it seems. It's like very, very early 80s. And you know what I mean when you listen to the couple of the songs I'm going to play. I'd like to know if they was going for this production. I can't find anything on, I mean, the guitarist, he sent me a little bit saying a couple of the songs I think were mixed, who they were mixed by, but I didn't find the actual producer. So Brian sent a few details through to me. I couldn't find who it was produced by, but I'd like to know from the band themselves whether they was going for this sort of sound on purpose, if you like. You know, it's an interesting one, and like I said, when you listen to these next couple of songs, it does sound like it's pulled straight out of the early 80s. And when that's a lot of people watch this channel, you know, they love that sort of raw, almost live feel, and that's what it really sounds like. So, without further ado, first track. This is Your Enemy. Here we go.
The cries still calling out to be saved.
really good song. So next track, this is my favourite on the album. This is Why I Cry, and this really shows the vocalist's range. You can really hear him at 57 years old, I think he was. He does a brilliant job on this. So have a listen to this one. Listen to this guy's voice. Absolutely brilliant performance. This is Why I Cry. What a great tune. What a great tune. So that's it. I'm just giving you a couple of snippets. Make sure you know before you go and buy it. And I'll recommend, supporting these guys. We Are Resolute. They're a really great band. Shine a Light album. I believe it's available across the board. You know what I mean? You can definitely look up where to get this album from and support them. These bands need our support now. There's lots of bands out there trying to, get on and make it. And why don't you us guys just add to it, Get this album. I really recommend it. If you like this sort of stuff, you like your 80s, late 70s, 80s stuff with a lot of melodic melody in there. And, this sort of album sort of got like hidden melodies as well. It's sort of like, maybe like at the beginning of the song when you first listen to it, it's sort of like, it doesn't grab you till later in the song. So I think it's one of them albums as well. The more you listen to it, the more you'll get from it, if you know what I mean. So definitely recommend these guys. Thanks for listening. Please press the red button if you want to subscribe.